really to promote collaboration. It's got a number of unique features, lots of glass in it, lots of open spaces, rooms that promote interaction. The stairwells are designed in such a way as to promote interaction at the vertical as well as the horizontal level. So it's an intriguing building. You may want to just take a look at
Well,
it.
I guess the thing I'd add is, it's the first building I've been in where you cannot get from point A to point B without walking through somebody else's space. So if you're a shy, retiring individual who doesn't want to bump into anybody, the Sanford Consortium building is not the place for you, because you will be interacting with people, and that is absolutely intentional. You can't avoid it. It's a great design for that.
Thanks, Larry. Rusty, maybe I could get you to say a few words about the cores. One of the things we hope will also promote collaboration is having a central set of cores that are useful to the people in the building, but to the wider body of investigators across the Mesa. Rusty?
Yeah, so cores were a little bit of a challenge because we're 4 institutes or 5 institutes now that have come together, and there's no real central facility or no employees other than Ed, so we're going to have people running the course. So how do you do this? So the ground state was no course. What you do is use the course in your own institutes, and that way we just solve the problem. But of course, as many of you are scientists know, there are certain large pieces of equipment and facilities that you really need to have next to your lab, and you can't afford to pay for it yourself. And it's cost effective to have it run in an aggregate way. So we sent a survey to all the members that were going to be PIs in the building and asked them, what did you absolutely have to have a piece of equipment or facility in the building, but you couldn't pay for it, you couldn't afford it. It was an elaborate survey of what did you need to have, but it didn't need to be in the building, what would you like to have, this sort of range of questions that we asked people. I came back and it was pretty telling that there were certain things we absolutely needed to have in the building, or a large majority of people needed to have in the building. But there were many things that they needed, but they didn't really need to have in the building. And we had pretty good facilities on the Mesa. So we had working at the group, we got together and brought together a lot of core leaders from the different institutes to give us an idea of what existed on the Mesa. This isn't really finished yet, and finally, but we're actually pretty excited about the idea that we're beginning to learn what each of the 4 institutes have as cores, 5 institutes have as cores working, and which ones work effectively. And so we took the best of those, and in cases where we needed to have in the building, we asked those individuals to be the leader in helping to devise a micro core or related core to the one that existed on campus, or in some cases, help develop a new core. And in the end, our hope is that what we'll really do is organize all the cores in the Mesa, so that the view of this is going to be, you're going to log on to cores on Mesa, and you have some idea of what it is that you want to do, some microscope that you're interested in having, some high throughput screen that you'd like to have. Go to your index, pull it down, and you'll have some options. There'll be 2 or 3 places on the Mesa that have something that you want. There'll be prices which will be matched, and we're working on that right now, which is kind of interesting, how to manage overhead costs between different institutes. But believe it or not, we're actually making some headway on that. But the advantage will be, for the working scientists, the postdocs, the students, is that you'll actually be able to have a location where you can find out what instruments are available within walking distance or bicycling distance, and go use it. So that's a spin-off, and we're working towards that. And the various institutions have conceived that this is going to be cost-effective on the one hand, in the sense that we'll try to reduce redundancy. But also, if there's some consensus that's building on what we need, new instrumentation that we need, we could merge together and buy that piece. So that, philosophically, is the direction we're going. Obviously, we had to get some cores going already. So first and foremost, we included very functional stem cell core, growing cells, harvesting cells from UCSD. And those individuals that ran it and used it most effectively are moving into the building full force and with their fully functional operation on a recharge basis. We also recruited a viral vector core that existed at the SOC, which will still have its recharge base in the SOC, just like the UCSD stem cell core has its recharge base based in UCSD, but they'll be right next to each other, working hand in hand. And they both work together to design space, acquire equipment. And obviously our hope is that this will be all freestanding eventually. We'll have a histology core, a microscopy core, which will focus primarily on live imaging. Like tissue imaging, we realized that everybody else could get fixed tissues analyzed either in their home institutions or in their own labs, and try to think about the high-end things. And each one of these core regions had a committee that evaluated what they needed. We also, and maybe I'll ask Ed to talk about this, we got really ambitious about wanting to have imaging. Imaging is going to be crucial for the future, and especially live imaging, live animals, humans, and watching where the cells go or monitoring where the drugs are going. So we invested in magnetic resonance imaging, functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, which is already in place at the building, and we have potential and plans for PET spec. We're still evaluating how to run that effectively, but I think what it harkens to is the idea that we don't want to do just the things that we're doing now. We're trying to think ahead about technologies that we hope to get to or that might be useful in our collaborations with industry and in translation. If you want to say something about where we are with that.
Just a word on the in vivo imaging, that thanks to CERN, we were awarded a portion of our grant to build out about 8,000 square feet of space in vivo imaging capability. Exactly how we're going to do this, Rusty said it's a work in progress, but I think the take-home message for all of you is that we would like very much for this to be not only something that the Center Consortium uses, but everyone across the Mesa, and ideally across the region, would be a part of this. And we're going to welcome in investigators from other institutions outside of our own and with industry as well. And we have some interesting opportunities to design this in a way that will make it a multi-user facility. And access to this very expensive imaging capability is not something most of us can do on our own. And so in addition to MRI, we might have cyclotron and ability to generate novel ligands to use, and looking at cells in vivo as well as PET, SPEC, C2, X-ray, ultrasound, IRIS, all the routine technology.
Yeah, just to finish this thing,